think it's been quite an interesting phase of development through the rehearsal process, because there are some parts that one plays where there are rather more in the way of familiar facets of the character to hang on to, and I'm finding that's not the case with Father Flynn, that he's quite an unfamiliar character to me, and also, of course, he comes from a place and a time that's culturally distinct, so I'm having to get to know him through the whole process, which has been an interesting part of it, I think.
And for me, it's been very, very interesting trying to tread the path, because on paper and in every obvious way, my character is completely inferior to yours, and she does actually say he is my superior. Of course I couldn't approach him like that, but actually, because of the way that she is and the job that she has to do, she has to go completely against everything that she knows is correct in terms of this relationship. So while on the one hand she's busily saying that no, of course you can't do that, and of course you can't do that, she has to do all of those things. And so there is this incredible battle between the two, and but basically I think she feels that everything is against her. All the odds are stacked against my character and in favour of yours. The culture, the time, the gender roles in the church, the hierarchy of the church, the treatment of her superiors to her as opposed to you, your cosy relationship with Monsignor Benedict, which is not like hers. Everything is completely stacked against her.
I certainly can see that, but I must say I've seen her acknowledgement of him as a superior and so on, although it may be formally the case, and that's not without pretty fundamental importance in the setting that we have. But I'd seen it as something of a veneer right from the start of the play, because I've always had the impression that she's formed a pretty clear view of Father Flynn from the start in terms of what we are portraying, what the audience will see. And so any of those references that we actually get verbally, there is a sort of...
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. She has to steer a path between that, on the one hand, that on paper and in cultural terms, she is his inferior, and she has very little rights and very little access to any power at all, unlike him.
But it's not a battle inside her, because she's already formed such a firm view.
Certainly, but she has that to deal with. She's got to steer her way through all of that in order to challenge him. That's what I mean, really. She has to pay some kind of lip service to that, and she has to fight and find a way through all that, whereas he has all that working for him.
He does, but I think he's taken by surprise. I think she's got a pretty clear idea of what she's about from the off, and I think that he's not quite sure what he's dealing with. I mean, he knows that she's a pretty tough cookie in terms of how she's dealing with the pupils and dealing with the school, but I don't think he has any idea of what she can be like in terms of what kind of a foe he's got on his hands. Absolutely. And so I think you see that in terms of him floundering from time to time, and also in terms of different tactics, and that's something which is very much a part of what you see in his response, certainly in the scene where the two of us are having a bit of a final battle, is that there is this obvious sort of attempt to use all sorts of different approaches to it. And I think that's at least in part not because of something sinister on his part, but because he simply doesn't know what makes this woman tick and how to respond to her. And also because he's so surprised, I suppose, because he's accustomed to there being this element of discipline within the order and there being this hierarchy that he's a natural part of.
But presumably because she's been in this environment and has had to survive in this environment for so long, she has worked out a way. She has, she knows what she's up against. She's figured out a way of steering her path through all of this. And it's really, from me anyway, it's actually her, when she meets Mrs. Mellor, that she's thrown. I don't think she's ever really thrown by Father Flynn. He tries various things. He tries to unnerve her with his constant note writing down. That doesn't work. I suspect that he's using that as a kind of attempt to destabilise her. He uses certain things, doesn't he, as an attempt to destabilise her, and none of them work. The only time she's, for me anyway, it's actually Mrs. Mellor who upsets her more.
Yes. Yes, other things, momentarily.
Yeah.
Might just throw her for a few. Yeah. Beats of the heart, but it's really that. Good example is when he's talking about others that he's managed to convince. And, there's literally just a moment's pause before she's saying, well, of course, and moves on. So she's pretty robust.
Yeah. And she must. What's interesting is, as you said, the force of her conviction, even before really anything happened. Because she's asked Sister James to be alert. She's prepared her. She's got her poised, ready, watching Father Flynn. So there's something instinctual has occurred for Sister Aloysius way before any of this actually happens, which is very interesting. Of course, she has already been through this once 8 years ago with another priest, so we don't know. Maybe there's something quite similar.
But the interesting thing is, I mean, she's also prepared to risk an awful lot on her own part, because this, one gets the feeling that this is very much absolutely her life, this school. Yeah. That she's got her own views about how it should be run, and she's that she's just soaked in what this school is all about. It is her place, and yet she is prepared to risk the whole thing, because if she does fall foul of the Monsignor, then he's right. She could be in big problems. Yeah. And I suppose that speaks for the fact that she's got such a clear concept of of the school, and that she's prepared to pretty much defend what she thinks is right about the school to the death, pretty much. Certainly to the death of her position.
And of course they are at loggerheads on so many levels, not just his tendencies,
culturally,
in every possible way.
Yes.
What he believes should be happening in this school, and what she believes should be happening in this school, and what he believes is a good, healthy relationship between teacher and pupil is completely at odds with what
well, that's part
she
of it.
does.
It's a good part of the dramatic tension in the piece, isn't it? Because certainly on the face of it, a lot of what he stands for in terms of the more modern approach to the more sympathetic dealing with the children, and the church having a more sort of modern familiar face, all of those things will appeal to the modern ear. Yeah. And so that to some extent that keeps the balance between the two characters as it should be, or at least closer to where it should be, because otherwise it could be that the audience would take against him rather too quickly, I suspect, here, given exactly. It's the kind of allegation where once it's made, people look askance at someone. So there needs to be an element of warmth. There needs to be an element about him that is more appealing than her beliefs, to even things up. Yeah. And I think that works quite well.
Yeah. Yeah.